At least 10 people are reported to have died in its path, and now the Category 5 storm is headed west towards Florida.
To Hurricane Irma, you've heard this already, could be the costliest but also the most damaging in U.S. history.
We are dealing with this hurricane that is unprecedented in a lot of areas, and even if it gets downgraded to a Category 4, it's still going to have the potential to bring devastating storm surge, devastating flooding, and very, very strong winds that could knock down buildings in South Florida.
Police officers, firefighters, and ambulances will not come to help you when the winds get too intense.
Now, to give you a better idea of just how dangerous and destructive this storm is and could be, let's take a look at a couple of headlines. USA Today, Hurricane Irma has the potential of affecting every major city in the state of Florida. The New York Post, Hurricane Irma is the size of Texas. The Miami Herald, 2 South Florida nuclear power plants lie in Irma's path. Are they ready? And the Washington Post, U.S. military preparations for Hurricane Irma now include 4 Navy ships and thousands of troops. And the Daily Beast, Hurricane Irma, look at this, is stronger than all of 2017's other 8 Atlantic storms combined.
The county ran out of bags to store all this sand in. Early this morning, they've handed out 20,000 so far.
So here is the way the storm looks in terms of its size. It has been growing. It's been out there for a long time, and it's been very, very intense for a long time, and it's pushing a lot of water with it. So the forecast in the Turks and Caicos was for a storm surge of up to 20 feet, which means that it's like halfway up the ceiling and out of camera range here. And that moving with current, too, not just the water coming up. It's rushing in, and then it's going to slowly recede after the storm passes. Or if the eye goes over, may rush back the other way. But it's very, very deadly.
And tonight, it's a race to outrun Irma, the most powerful hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic. The fury of this Category 5 storm was seen in the Caribbean, where at least 10 people were killed when Irma tore through there. Here in Florida, more than 1 million live in mandatory evacuation zones, and folks along the Georgia coast have also been ordered to leave.
More now on the threat to Florida. 180-mile-an-hour winds seriously threaten buildings across Florida, and we've already seen the destruction they've caused in Barbuda and St. Martin. Now, officials and residents closely watching high-rise buildings and construction cranes along the coast. Our chief national correspondent Tom Yamas is in Miami. Good morning, Tom.
George, good morning to you. Just behind me, you can see one section of Miami's beautiful glass-filled skyline. Now, that glass is one concern, but the other big concern, take a look at this angle from this same balcony. Those construction cranes there in the distance. There's 20 to 25 of them, and now officials here in Miami are advising anyone who lives in a building next to a crane to get out.
This morning, Hurricane Irma causing a sky-high scare for some in South Florida. In downtown Miami, a combination of condo canyons and massive construction cranes leading to new warnings. Brickell resident Jonathan Ayal wrote out Hurricane Wilma on the 18th floor of his building.
Panes of glass that were probably 40 to 50 sections at a time got sucked out and were floating like paper in the air, and then were just crashed to the ground.
We start off tonight with the most potent Atlantic Ocean hurricane on record, according to the National Hurricane Center. At least 7 people have died so far. Whole islands are ravaged. Hundreds of thousands are without power tonight. And the worst could be yet to come as Irma bears down on the heavily populated U.S. Southeast. We begin tonight with senior correspondent Adam Housley on Key Largo in the direct path right now. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening, Brett. With the Florida Keys bracing for that direct hit, many who've never evacuated here before have packed up and got out.
I couldn't even pack nothing. I have the clothes on my back. That's it.
Time is short before Irma makes its unwelcome advance, with the first stop expecting to be in the Florida Keys. And here, effects could be felt as early as Friday night.
There will be a handful of people that will be staying here. So we'll see what happens. If it gets real bad, then we'll take off.
Mandatory evacuations already in place for the Keys and much of South Florida.
If you're in the Keys and still home, leave and get out. We can't save you after the storm starts.
But not everyone is ready to get out just yet.
We're staying here. We're going to a friend's house. Gonna ride it out. Hopefully we're okay.
Tens of thousands already heeding the advice, departing by air, boat, and car. Roads north and west jammed with traffic and snaking lines for gas, food, and supplies, leading to reports of shortages and price gouging. Police even escorting fuel supply trucks to critical areas in need of fuel.
We've got 4 vehicles and they're all full. So we've got that gas for the generators. We've got 4 generators. So am I scared? Yeah.
The governor of Florida plans to activate 7,000 National Guard troops, and the president promising the federal response will be swift.
We are very well covered from the standpoint of bravery and talent. We have tremendous people there representing us.
Last-minute preparations are everywhere. Businesses and homes boarded up, and armies of volunteers filling sandbags, especially around Miami, where many forecasts say Irma is targeted.
I have hotel rooms rented in Orlando. I just don't know if I'm going up there or not, but my wife says I am.
Any doubts about this hurricane's power? Just ask residents of the Eastern Caribbean, Hispaniola, and Puerto Rico, where at least 70% of the island is without power, and some areas could remain that way for months.
I'm on 441, which is the Aguada Pico de Piedra Strip. It's really windy. It's actually rocking my car.
Sustained winds of 180 miles per hour producing massive storm surge, severe flooding, and property damage. States of emergencies declared in the Carolinas and Georgia, anticipating the hurricane could trundle up the East Coast.
Sustained winds are 175 miles an hour. Video from the space station shows Irma's size. Hurricane-force winds extend 70 miles from its center. We want to check in with Lonnie Quinn, chief weathercaster at our New York station WCBS. Lonnie, the forecast is changing.
It is. The new information pushes things a little bit more to the west, and we talk about this being an ominous turn. Well, let's get right to it. We haven't actually begun the turn yet, but there's a picture of Irma. It's enormous. You could fit Texas inside of that. The new forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center. Let's display that for you because we're in very much in agreement. It's going to continue this trek to the west-northwest. Here's where it becomes a little iffy, though. This is the iffy part. When does it start this turn to the north? And you got to notice here, between these two yellow lines, anything is at play. So the west coast, the east coast of Florida, both a possibility. Let me show you one model that we tend to look at pretty heavily these days because it's been performing so well. The European, okay? This, the National Hurricane Center's forecast, this right there on the west coast of Florida is where the European model puts the storm. But even they have been waffling because look at where this was earlier today. 12 hours ago, it was an east coast storm with the eye right over Miami Beach.
That's what we're looking at, a very intense hurricane for the area. There's a look at the visible satellite imagery, losing our light of the day, but you can see what they call a stadium effect as the shadows come across the eye itself. A very large geographical tropical system. So again, we'll continue to watch the movement of this system, but this is the official track in 175-mile-per-hour winds. You can see that movement to the northwest, northwest. Friday at 2 p.m. is a Category 5 north of the Dominican Republic. A Category 4 storm Saturday early in the day, and then Saturday in the afternoon with 140-mile-per-hour winds. There you see the shift, slight shift to the west. Probably as a nod to the European computer model. Have not yet read the discussion from the National Hurricane Center, but you could see that probably is what they were thinking at the moment, and then moving that cone of air all the way up into sections of the Carolinas. Now keep in mind, you can see the Tampa Bay area in that cone of air. We've been stressing this over and over again. Look at the white cone, not the center path or where those icons are moving, because this can all change. If this would shift a little farther to the west, that would mean obviously stronger winds for inland counties, especially places like Polk and Highlands County. But you can see overall, the spaghetti models are still trending to the east, and we'll see if that 12Z run from the Euro was an outlier and whether that trend will continue. It's watching the trend. That's why it's good to look at all the computer models at once to see what they're all thinking.
Scary stuff. Governor Rick Scott warning Floridians to get out while they still can.